Oh, thank you. He's a really hard act to follow. Should we I'll just sit down and he can do another half an hour. I'm going to talk about design systems today, and I'm going to talk about something that's been bothering me for a while. And I've used this talk, it's been really helpful, because I've never been able to really articulate over the last year or so what my problem is with design systems. So this talk, I'm afraid, is a little bit of this, as there's going to be some complaining and some griping, and maybe very few answers. But what I am hoping to do, this is a picture of a mallard duck. Isn't he handsome? What I want to do today is to try, if only a few of you think about design systems slightly differently, then I will have done my job. Incidentally, all ducks are wearing dog masks, in case you didn't know. So what I want to do, this is the same picture, but your perception has changed, right? And this is what I want to do today. So like I said, it's taken me a while to get my head around what I'm actually going to say today. Even as soon as last week, I sent a tweet out to the dear people of my Twitter timeline about design systems, right? That ship has sailed, right? We all know that design systems are great. They let us do great things. Yeah, there are some disadvantages, but there's so many advantages. You know, they're all of these and more. Consistent, sustainable, they enable the scale, that word. Their ease of use, centralized, robust code, cost saving, you know, all of this great stuff. Why wouldn't we use them? Well, there's a bunch of stuff that is challenging. You know, they cost a lot, both in terms of people and time and money. There's a lot of maintenance. There's no clear ROI. This stuff's really, really hard to measure, yet management want to see what their investment gives them, and it's super hard. And it, you know, changes of leadership and funding and things like that. It makes things hard. But that's not what is bothering me, because that's all kind of, again, common sense, right? These are pitfalls of many projects that we work on. So what is it? So I'm going to try and articulate what my problem is. So I started looking at other systems in my life. Well, maybe that's a good place to start, right? Things that work well in your life, or things that have influenced you in my career, throughout my time as a designer. So I want to tell you a little story. About 2 years ago, my daughter came down to me one day. So we have, going back about 5 years, we had, you know, she wanted a pet. She wanted a pet guinea pig, right? So I negotiated with her and got her down to fish, right? So, and I was like, right, you know, you can have fish if you can look after the fish. So guess who looks after the fish? Me, right? So she came to me about 2 years ago and she said, Daddy, I really want a rabbit. I'm like, been here before. And she said, and I'm going to prove to you that I can look after the rabbit because I know what happened with the fish, right? So she made a little cardboard hutch, and she had a toy rabbit. And for a week, she took care of this toy rabbit, right in front of my face to make me feel like super guilty. And at the same time, that same week, this is in July, no, sooner, it's like April, my other daughter, who is, she was 6 at the time, she said, Daddy, I've written my letter to Santa Claus. I'm like, okay, cool. It's quite a way off, but what have you put? And number 1 at the top was a dog. Number 2 was a bed for the dog. Number 3 was a bone for the dog. And this went on for about 30 things of all the things she wanted for a dog. The same week, it was like a pincer movement from my family. I was cornered every which way. I was attacked. By Friday, my wife showed me some pictures of puppies. She's like, wouldn't it be nice to have a dog? So I relented. I was like, oh, okay. So this is Charlie. Don't be fooled. Yeah, he doesn't look like that anymore. This was 2 years ago. Now, he doesn't smoke cigars. So we got a dog. Charlie is a cockapoo. He's 2 years old now, and he's brilliant. I never thought I'd be the guy who thought dogs were brilliant. Who has a dog? Show of hands. Oh, not too many. Who has a cat? Loads more. Who has both? Oh, a couple. Oh, it's risky business. You know, I'm a kind of person who, when I commit to something, I take it quite seriously, whatever that is in my life. Like I ride road bikes really seriously. I grew bonsai really seriously. I did martial arts really seriously. And I take owning a dog really seriously. So I said, right, I'm gonna, you know, train the dog. Because, you know, I want an obedient dog. I don't want a dog who's gonna go out and gnaw a child's face off. So I found Nia. So Nia is she's a dog behaviourist, which is like, oh, that sounds cool. Yeah, I'm into that. So she lives down the road from me, and we got talking, and she helped us with Charlie. Turns out she trained with the actual dog whisperer from the TV, which was amazing. And she taught me a system, basically, these things. So the system I have a relationship with my dog is through the lens of these things: consistency, boundaries, expectation, energy, and needs. So I saw a thing this morning, actually, on Twitter. I just want to show it to you as an example of why these kind of things are important. And so it's one of these cool mechanical dog, it's a mechanical thing. It's like kind of steampunk, right? It's very cool. So this thing's walking along, everyone's having a jolly time. Isn't it lovely? Well, then he meets another dog, which you'll see in a second. Right, so this dog's like, oh, and everyone in the crowd is like, oh, isn't this wonderful? He's met a new friend. Isn't it great? You know, it's very cute, right? So finish in a minute. So when I look at that, right, and so Nia would say to this, she'd be kind of appalled, actually. And what are the driving point for this system is that we don't apply human behaviors and psychology to dogs. And dogs only have body language with which to communicate, right? You never really see a dog barking at each other, having a conversation, right? That just doesn't, like that doesn't happen, right? Dogs do not talk to each other. They talk through the way they behave. And it's super subtle. And to tune into that is very interesting, because on Twitter I saw this, and I saw the thread, and I was like, oh, this is super cute. And I looked at that, and I saw a really nervous dog. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Once I can't actually fast forward this, so we'll just wait until they meet. But I want you to take a look at a few things. So those of you who have dogs. The dog has, first of all, his tail is between his legs, right? It's kind of down here. He's super nervous. And you'll notice that the owner, which is his kind of alpha, his leader, he's not giving him any guidance. He's just stood there laughing at him. No, isn't this cute? Isn't this cute? The dog is really scared. He doesn't quite know what to do. The other dog, the big dog, the thing, is looking at him directly in the eye. So that is a threat for a dog. That can lead to aggression. And what the owner does here is he pats him on the head, right? So in one of the things that dogs, I'm not going to talk to you about dogs all day, don't worry. We are going to go into design systems. So when you, dogs do not comfort each other, right? So if a dog is attacked, a dog is ostracized in a pack, they don't go around going, oh, poor you, poor you. No, they just ignore them, right? They just ignore them completely. So what this owner is doing when going, oh, you know, it's human psychology comforting a dog. Really what the dog is seeing in that is, oh, your behavior is appropriate. Carry on as you were. You see this a lot with fireworks, right? When dogs freak out with fireworks, and owners try and comfort them. What they're not doing, they're reinforcing the behavior. They're saying, no, this is appropriate. So that's the thing about dogs. Other systems in my life which have been really influential. This is I think it's the relay race or something, the poster from the 1972 Munich Olympics, which is an incredibly, if you want to see kind of the poster child of what successful identity design in a truly holistic sense with incredible scale looks like, this is the one. It was, so that was a gift from my wife, incidentally. So Untitled and his team in, really funny name, Department 11, they were called. There's about 80 people, cross-disciplinary people, designed this system. And, uncovered everything, right? Absolutely everything to do with the games. Even this weird little dog called Valdi, which you could buy as a little wooden thing. To the architecture, the Olympic Park, incredible architecture, and they had oversight and influence even down to the colors of the chairs within the building. And amazing clothes. I really wanted to make this like a caption. I was trying to think like, what were they saying to each other? So yeah, every instance, every touch point of that system was very carefully controlled and considered. Another system within my life is, I studied as a typographic designer. I wanted to design books 30 years ago. That didn't work out so well, did it? So it was Denoy typography. So this is Jan Schickhold's, as what he came to call it is his extremist manifesto of what design should be, what graphic design should be. So basically at the time, this is the 20s, the design of the time within Germany was, all black letter. It was kind of terrible. And he came along with his modernist ideals, but not only the ideals. The book itself, the latter half of the book, is documenting down to the nth degree of what size paper should be used, what typeface, what sizes, what measurements. Super rigid. Like you said, he came on to later life realizing it's kind of foolish. A few things stuck from this. It's still kind of influential now, but mostly it didn't because it was way too rigid. A very successful design system that he worked on was with Penguin Books. So he was there for about 3 years and overhauled. At the time, a lot of Penguin's books went to lots of different printers and suppliers, and they'd be reimagined and interpreted by the printers at the time. Remember, around this time, printers and designers were really kind of the same people a lot of the time. So they'd reinterpret this design, which is hand-drawn, incidentally, and then they'd end up with all kinds of inconsistencies. So his job was to make that all into one cohesive system. And a lot of what he did remains today within Penguin Books for the book covers. There are another few people who were involved, but largely the principles that he put down are still at play. So there are other systems, right, as well, that are very successful. Board games being one, chess being one. This apparently is the quickest checkmate that you can do. Ding, done. I've been trying to memorize it, but I'm beating my kids then. What do these systems have in common, right? What I see as successful systems, and my problem with design systems on the web right now. So Otolaika, when he was asked to describe the kind of central principles on which the Olympics system was built, was this: strictly designed grammar, allowing for free, playful expression. And I think this can be applied to all the systems I've just described, from Charlie's dog system to chess. The very simple rules, strictly applied, but give encouragement to express ourselves as humans. And really, that's what design systems should do. Everything we design or work on isn't for Wall Street or, well, maybe it is. But at the end of the day, it's people, humans, people who use these things. And people are weird. And we need to acknowledge the human in our systems. So I think we're focused way too far on a strictly designed grammar. And we do not allow for free, playful expression. And I wonder why. So whenever we hear about design systems, we read books about design systems, we read the latest think piece on Medium from someone in their design system utopia about what their design system world is like. We hear words like this all the time, right? Scale, repetition, efficiency, optimization, all of this stuff. These are not the words of design. They're the words of manufacturing. We're not really designing products with design systems. We're manufacturing products. I don't know about you, but I didn't get into the driving motivation for me to be where I am now. It's not managing people. It's not all of that. I wanted to make beautiful things for people. And a lot of the time, I find that that's not what I'm doing. I'm feeding the monster of scale. So these are kind of 4 points that I want to drill into. So I think that current design system thinking really limits our free, playful expression. And I think I have some ideas why. You may agree with me, you may disagree, that's fine. So I live in a really old house. It's about 300 years old, we think. And with a lot of old houses, right, you remember that film with Tom Hanks in, where, the money pit, where you just, no, no, okay, I'm showing my age. Right, okay, moving swiftly on. This was I wanted a new fireplace, right? So when we moved in, we had a new fireplace. There was loads of shit in the chimney we didn't know was there. There was the walls. I was putting up, my kids were really little when we moved in, like super young. And we needed stair gates, right? Stop them killing themselves falling down the stairs. And I was drilling a hole to put up this stair gate, and I went straight through the wall and set whatever was inside the wall on fire. And it turned out that it was horsehair, because that's what they put in walls for really, I don't know where they got it from. Horses, I guess, but there's a lot of hair, right, in a house. What do they do to these horses? I've never seen a horse being cut. Anyway. So there's another thing. So electrics, right? There's another thing that's difficult in an old house. This is the tip. So anyone who's there, I changed this light switch. So these are 4 switches. And it looked kind of complicated when I thought I'd just be able to, this is the first ever light switch that I changed. And I thought, how hard can it be? Right, you'll notice that all the wires are brown. Brilliant. So I thought, right, no, I'm going to be smart about this. I can take a photograph, and I'll just take them all out, put them all back, look at the photograph, new switch, put it in. No, it didn't work. Whenever I pressed a button, the lights came on in the other room, and it was like some kind of weird game to get it to come on in this room. Now, in 1994, Stuart Brand wrote a really great book. And if anyone is into design systems thinking, this is well worth your time. In fact, it's well worth your time anyway, because you work in organizations, we live in environments like buildings. It's really interesting concept, this idea of shearing layers of change. So he proposed this idea that houses have different rates of change for different parts of them. And then in subsequent, he wrote another book called The Clock of the Long Now, and he applied that to the world, basically. I'll take housing and I'll expand it to the world. And this is what became known as pace layers. And there's, fashion and commerce and infrastructure, and some things are really fast and squiggly, and some things are super slow, and they're meant to be. Now, he has this really lovely way of describing this, is that the fast parts learn and the slow parts remember. And that's like a lovely way of coming to terms with some of the pain that we feel with the work we do. So if you think about what goes into a design system, there's an awful lot of stuff. And quite often design system documentation and the way that we rationalize and present all of this stuff is, through very similar ways. We know, the guidelines of style, and we have, it's very much focused on delivering it the best way for the people consuming the system, right? Totally makes sense. But there's a lot more typically they're arranged like this, right? Brand, marketing, and product. But there's a lot more in systems than just this and these things. There's all of this other stuff in there as well. There's foundational stuff, tooling. People are never really talked about within the context of design systems. And really, that's the hardest bit, is people. And stakeholders, teams, internal communities, how we communicate the value, how we change our processes so that we can iterate, all of that, that's a super important part that's never really discussed openly. So how about, instead of organizing these by kind of facet, which they are right now, by kind of category, we organize these by pace of change. And it helps me come to terms with a few things. So if we think that maybe tooling is really squiggly, it changes every week, it seems, every day, there's some NPM explosion happening somewhere. And then it goes down to foundations, which are things like URLs and stuff that shouldn't change, should barely ever change. When we're bouncing around in between the layers, it's kind of like turbulence in a transatlantic airline plane, right? There's turbulence there because we're trying to either affect change in a layer above or below. And that's super hard because things are naturally at a certain speed and cadence, or should be. And one of the things that Chris said yesterday morning that really struck home with me about the change of the way front-end development and design is happening. Those two things are smushed together more and more. And particularly in design systems and design system teams, those things are becoming almost indistinguishable to pull apart, right? And what we're seeing, I think, is we're drawing distinct lines between things that are quick and fast and should be to change, and things that are really, really slow. And that causes a lot of problems. So I think many of you who work in design systems this might ring quite true. When I worked for an American company a few years ago, and we tried to launch. I worked in the kind of the digital side of the branding team. Kind of a weird place to be thinking about making a design system, but everything that wasn't digital was holistically considered, and it had that few rules with free, playful expression. And that's not just print. That was lots of other media as well. Digital wasn't. And it wasn't because of any, because it didn't make sense, because it kind of makes sense, right? It was like that way because of the way the organization was structured. So each part of the organization was a silo. And it wasn't only siloed in terms of people and leadership, it was siloed in terms of profit and loss. It was siloed in terms of the products and the product portfolio, and even down to like technical stack. And this is what happens when organizations grow, right? They acquire this, they acquire that, they grow this there, and you end up with this big pile of shit that things can't talk to each other, right? And it's through no fault of management, it's through no fault. I'm not blaming anybody, it's just the way it is. So when you try and launch a design system, then all of a sudden your job is not really focused on design at all. It's not even focused on trying to sell the idea of, well, this is a good idea, and you get lots of nods, yes, yes, it is, yes, yes. Can you do it? No, 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 no. right? It's because the status quo will always be protected, one. Two, it's not about design, it's about power, and it's about politics. And all of a sudden, you find yourself in a position of being a politician, to actually progress a design system. The challenge is that design systems overtly uncover this discomfort. And it makes people scared, it makes people angry, it makes people get fired, it causes disruption to the status quo. Because it delves and spans the base layers of an organization. Because you have to address things like technical debt. You have to address things like, well, this stack over here doesn't touch this stuff, so how can I get my data out? And those are hard things to solve. So I think that this is, continual design improvement and delivery is a lie that is told to sell in the idea of design systems. I don't think it actually is ever the case. And I'm more than happy to be told I'm wrong on this. But my experience is what I've seen is that we spend a lot of time building design systems and we roll them out. They get coupled too tightly to technology for aging, decrepit technical systems, that any change that we make is like it's like a stack of cards of dependencies, right? There's a reason probably why Facebook has like a bazillion designers, and it's because of this. It's because any minute change has an enormous impact, butterflies and hurricanes. Also, like I said, this as well, which I think is a lovely way of phrasing the conflict we feel, the conflict I feel with design systems. And it's this constant ebb and flow between obligation and freedom. But the problem is, because of the way that front-end development has matured over the past few years, certainly, is that obligation is now not only design obligation and brand obligation, but it's technical obligation. And it's not even obligation. There's no decision-making in the process. You just have to do it. And that cuts down dramatically on freedom. A friend of mine, Mark, who works at the government digital service in the UK, said, put it very eloquently, by locking the design into a system like that, it makes it super hard to just do something really fast. And, I've been in situations, I'm sure many of you have, where if you need to do that, you end up forking the system. Or you end up just building something out scratch just for necessity. Because it's just too hard to change that card component. Like, I can't do that because I've got to change this, I've got to change that, I've got to rewrite all this stuff. That's going to take me 4 days. So forget it. I'll just make something in 20 minutes that will serve my purpose. So it makes it super difficult. And it's because of this ebb and flow between optimization and flexibility. And the problem with that is scale. When we're feeding the monster of scale, we're not concerned with flexibility, because flexibility actually doesn't really give us that much benefit from a scale perspective. I'd argue very strongly that it does from a human perspective. So we're very much focused over here, and we're feeding the monster. And my last point is that I think that components are great, and we think it is a very natural way to design, right? But I think it's very siloed in the way that we're approaching it. I was, whoever got excited about, I love this old Lego stuff. So I was showing my age, right? This was from 1979, and I remember buying one of those, having one of those bought for me. What was I saying? Right, so this happened a few years ago. Somebody, when I was freelancing, they said, we want an atomic design system. And I didn't even know where to start with my response to this. I was like, right. It was for a big publisher, really big publisher, very well-known brand of a magazine. I'm not going to say who it is, but it was a rabbit hole of questions and responses, and it unearthed a lot of inconsistency. So for me, an atomic design system is not the place you start. You know, a design system is not going to make your user experience any better. It's not the thing. The thing is, well, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to sell? What are you trying... Those are the questions that we should be asking. That should be the brief. The brief shouldn't be, we want a modular design system. Well, okay. So, you know, I think as an industry, we have a bit of a new hammer, right? And everything looks like a nail. Everything. And it's kind of tiring. Because I think we need this strict grammar. There's a reason why you look at most mature ways of presenting things like brand and identity, and they present them in the same way. They've been doing this for like decades. And they show very simple rules, and then they show application and examples, because the point is that they should be reinterpreted. There should be freedom to express for different audiences, for different products, for different verticals. Like, this is about expression of a brand, and then it becomes a conversation about what are the questions, what is the brief. But when we focus too strictly, and we have this strict grammar, and we don't have this free, playful expression, we're not designing. We're just manufacturing. Thank you very much.